these days I'm realizing about what life goes after turning to 50.
Get to the club. Wow.
I'm become 50 this year.
You're still young and charming and you have this boy looks.
We always looking for your reputation and fame, as a junior faculty.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Cass. Thank you very much coming to Seoul.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Good to see you.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is Sang-won from Kyung University.
Oh,
Hi, Sang-won.
Danwon, hello.
Hi, Kepe.
Hi, Noah. Hi, Jim.
Hello.
Hi, Stan.
Hi, Kai. Nice to see you.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Phil.
hey,
Hey,
Stan.
Cassie. Hi, everyone.
Hello, Phil.
Good to see
Hey,
you,
someone.
Phil.
Good to see
Hello,
you.
Phil. Yeah, good to see you.
Okay. We're gonna start off on time, 10 o'clock. First of all, I'm going to introduce of this forum, and I'm asking you to introduce yourself one by one. Okay. I will present a short slide.
So, Chulmo, is everybody going to be on Zoom or is
Zoom.
people going on another place?
Technical problem, so I'm going to share this on Zoom platform.
Okay.
And later I'm cooking this slide and then I'm going to post on the YouTube.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for coming to Seoul in virtual Zoom platform. It is my really honor to invite the well-known professors as well as the famous journal editors to discuss interdisciplinary talks. My name is Chol-Mok-gu, co-editor-in-chief of Journal of Smart Tourism. Today I invited them, those people who are very well-known professors in our field, as well as computer science and management information field. Journal of Smart Tourism, we began last year to discuss with the nature and the role of IT within the context of travel, tourism, leisure, and hospitality sectors. Therefore, Journal of Smart Tourism invite interdisciplinary editors talk about phenomenon of tourism over open networks of multidisciplinary field and a broad spectrum of stakeholders. Journal of Smart Tourism editorial teams, my colleagues, Dean of this school, Namo Chung, and Uli Gretchen. And today, I invited the participating editors, Journal of Tourism Management editors, Dr. Kes Chu, and Journal of Travel Research, Dr. James Patrick, and Journal Information Processing and Management, Dr. Jim Jensen, and Reinhard. You will not be attend because of time difference. And editor-in-chief of Tourism Review, Dr. Dmitry Bualis, editor-in-chief of European Journal of Tourism Research, Dr. Sanish Ivanov, and managing editor of Tourism Management, Dr. Sangwon Park, and editor-in-chief of Information Systems Frontiers, Dr. Rajv Rao, and finally, editor-in-chief of Journal of Information Technology and Tourism, Dr. Zhang Xian. Today, we are going to talking about what interdisciplinary research is. I'm going to give my summary about interdisciplinary research based on literature. According to the National Science Foundation, they note interdisciplinary research is dynamic, continually emerging and melding and transforming areas. And interdisciplinary research is a mode of research by teams or individuals that integrate information, data, techniques, tools, perspective, concept, and theory from two or more disciplines. Therefore, body of specialized knowledge to advance fundamental understanding to solve a problem whose solutions are beyond the scope of a single discipline. This is a definition of National Foundation Foundation.
왜?
Excuse me? I'm sorry. Okay. Let me give one example. A theory from behavioral economics is a most famous social science researcher and professor, Daniel Kahneman. He invented a theory of behavioral economics, and which means behavioral economics combines elements of economics, psychology to understand how and why people behave the way they do in real world. He investigates that individuals assess their loss and gain perspectives in an asymmetric manner. And finally, he got Nobel Prize 2002 about his work developing prospect theory. This prospect theory shows us negative value and positive value, and people usually feel different. But however, very interestingly, I call that is scientific method and measures by modern technology and scientists. However, long time ago, the Chinese ancient philosophy in China, Zhangzi, BC 369, he noted this sentence. Behavioral economics very similar with behavioral economics. He proposing that he give them 3 chestnuts in the morning and 4 chestnuts at night. Upon hearing that, the monkeys began to grit their teeth and growl in anger. The man then changed his proposal. The monkeys would receive 4 chestnuts in the morning and 3 chestnuts at night. Hearing that, the monkeys happily agreed to man's proposal. So, long time ago, the Zhangzi philosopher, he talking about philosophy. And 2000 years later, Daniel Kahneman probably adopt this philosophy and investigate scientifically and measure human mind. Anyway, based on this concept, I and my colleague Ulrich Gretschel, Mariana Sigala, Zhang Xiang, and me, we wrote a paper, Smart Tourism, published in electronic markets, which is profoundly impact to interdisciplinary fields. Now currently cited 1,351. And then last year I began Journal of Smart Tourism, and I propose very well-known professor and famous journal editors to invite talk about Tech Talk. So first, Tech Talk with Dr. K. Chan, and Tech Talk with Dr. Hannes Werner. And last year, the Tech Talk with Dr. Dmitry Boalis. Something like this. I'm keep pursue the technology in tourism field. However, tourism field should be converged with methodologically computer science and MIS. This is all very short slide presentation of smart tourism and the activity that I have been so far. Thank you very much. From now on, I'm going to ask one by one self-introduction for our audience. Indicate first one, Dr. Dmitry Boalis. Can you present yourself?
Good morning, everybody. Cloudy Hong Kong. It's great to be with you today. I'm visiting professor in Hong Kong Polytechnic University currently, but my normal position is in Bournemouth University, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Tourism Review and the Encyclopedia of Tourism Management and Marketing.
Thank you. As far as I know, Dr. Dmitry Boalis, he is world most cited papers he got, right? And he keep publishing the papers in our field, even though he become growing old and old. This is fantastic.
I need to say no to that. I'm not growing old and old. I'm very young, and and I'm trying to create new stuff.
Okay, thank you. It's just kidding. Okay, next, Journal of Travel Research, which is a top tier journal in our field, and impact factor over 10. Dr. Patrick, James Patrick.
Howdy, all. I'm in Texas right now. I am the father of 2 amazing daughters who happens to be a professor with expertise typically in tourism marketing. Good to see all these faces tonight.
Thank you very much. Actually, I never known the Dr. James Patrick. I just, called contact, and Dr. James Patrick, why don't you join this the forum for us? And he happily accept my request. I'm highly appreciate for your commitment. Thank you very much. And another top tier journal, and the most top tier journal in our field, Journal of Tourism Management, Dr. Cassie Chu from Hong Kong.
Hi, good morning. If you're in Asia, my name is Kathy Xu. I'm a professor in the School of Hotel Tourism Management at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. I've been here for 22 years already, believe it or not. And before I came to Hong Kong, I was teaching in the United States. for 9 years. So yes, I'm growing older and older. And I'm the editor-in-chief of tourism management, and I look forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cassie, since last year, I keep asking her commitment and invite her to our session and research colloquium, and she also happily accept my request. I'm highly appreciative for your helpness. Thank you. And Dr. Phil Jiang Xiang from Texas, Virginia Tech.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, by the way, Professor Khu. My name is Zhen Xiang. I teach in the Howard FireTech Department of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Virginia Tech in the US. I manage the Journal of Information Technology and Tourism. Thank you.
Okay, Zhang Xiang, he is a very close friend of mine, and he always helped me to settle down in tourism community since 2013. I'm highly appreciate your friendliness all the time.
Thank you.
Okay. And Dr. Jensen from computer science, and he is editor of information processing and management.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm Jim Jansen. I'm in Qatar at the Qatar Computing Research Institute. Been here 8 years now. Yes, as mentioned, I'm the editor-in-chief of Information Processing and Management, Interdisciplinary Elsevier Journal. And thank you so much, Professor Khu, for the invitation. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Jim Jensen. He always also gave me an opportunity to publish smart tourism in his journals. So it's one kind of very good the example, the work, the interdisciplinary computer science and tourism field. And Dr. Sang-won Park is a managing editor of tourism management.
Well, hello everyone. Thanks to Professor Khu to invite this great forum. Actually, I joined the Kyung University last year, and then before that, I used to teach at Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and I'm a managing editor in tourism management. My role is to support the cafe with chief editor, as well as other regional editors in tourism management. Then my role is that actually people will hear from me the negative information or decision, which means that I only eligible to reject the paper as opposed to accept the paper. So I hope that the world researchers do not hate me too much, but yeah, I keep trying to making a full and enthusiasm to improve our reputation of tourism management. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, Sang-won, he joined the Kyung University last year. I think, but he's objectively measured my papers all the time. So I don't feel he's my friend. he's kind of an enemy. Wow. Kidding. Yeah. Anyway, I'm always thankful to Dr. Sang-won Park. He's given me the very good advice of his research, our school. Thank you very much. And Dr. Ulrike Gritcher, he joined our Journal of Smart Tourism as a co-editor-in-chief since this year.
Yes, hi everyone from California. So I'm a senior researcher at Center for Public Relations Research here at the University of Southern California. I'm involved also in CHID as an associate editor, and happy to move the smart tourism agenda forward with this new journal.
Okay, Uli, she has always helped me to settle down in tourism field. She begins smart tourism research with me since 2013. And she found actually the definition of smart tourism with me. So I'm happy to work with her all the time. Okay, next, Stanislav Ivanov.
Thank you. Stanislav Ivanov, Professor and Vice Rector Research at Varna University of Management. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of two journals, European Journal of Tourism Research and Toponomics, the Journal of the Automated Economy. And good morning, everyone. It is 3:15 here in Bulgaria, and I'm just 500 kilometers from what you see on the news. Odessa is just 500 kilometers north. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of this forum.
Yeah, last night we had a very bad news from the region. The region that is Bulgaria and Ukraine and Russia. Anyway, Dr. Stan, he is the most the admirable professor to me. He shows his way to how to start new journals. I envy him the most. Actually, the tourism management, the journal of travel research is far beyond me, but the European Journal of Tourism Research is over there. Anyway, okay, thank you very much again. Let's talk about today's agenda. Today, I already sharing the question with you, and I'm going to ask you the question one by one. As you well know, we are living in the COVID-19 era, and the COVID pandemic actually severely influenced our life, not only life, but also the tourism industry and field. But we have to do some, find out the solution or opportunity how to overcome this pandemic, situation as a researcher. So I want to ask you about this pandemic situation related to tourism business and field as a researcher. Okay, Professor Phil, can you start off your idea about this question?
Me?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Well, let me give it a try. I know this is a big topic, right?
Yeah.
We're still living in a pandemic, but in many parts of the world, it seems that it's behind us. We still have the virus among us, but it seems that from the policy point of view, right, we are looking at the pandemic as something we have to live with, right? It's not like 2 years ago. It's really a shock, and we didn't know what to do. But now it seems that we understand better, right, in terms of its impact, and we understand better in terms of how we should respond at different levels, right? From the behavior point of view, from the service provider's point of view, and from the industry and policy, point of view. In the past 2 years, what I learned is that the impact really has different ramifications on different sort of the aspects of the industry. Apparently, the leisure market is coming back. Right? People have the desire to travel. This is something innate to our, say, psychology, right? Travel is part of us, part of being human. But I don't know when, say, business travel will be back. It seems it will take much longer for business travel to come back. Also, it seems that domestic markets are coming back, at least from the US point of view. Domestic travel has been growing in the past, several months. What I learned is that recently Marriott just released its annual and quarterly data. In the fourth quarter of 2021, actually Marriott's performance, revenue in terms of revenue, was on par with the pre-pandemic era. So domestic travel is coming back. International travel, well, I don't know. It might take years, right? It depends a lot on policies and regulations.
Mhm.
So this is what I have kind of learned in the past couple of years, and I would like to leave some time for other editors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Phil. You're originally Chinese. You're from China.
Yes.
You must come and go for visiting your hometown as an international travelers and visitors. So, are you going back to China as an international visitors?
Unlikely. It's impossible at this moment as we speak.
Okay. Okay. And the next, Dr. Sangwon Park, he is the
Whoa, what is that?
wow, it's amazing, amazing interruption. What is this? Oh my. Okay, please go.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're asking, oh, so now you're asking me the same question.
Okay, Sangwon, can you share your idea about the pandemic situation with tourism?
Yeah. Okay, so then I think I'm not, as Phil said, it's a pandemic, so I believe that it hugely make a high impact on tourism industry in general. But in terms of a travel behavior, so we are not quite sure yet because we're still on the stage of a pandemic. So we still need to wait for. And then, so this is out of our individual control. So international agreement require that open the gate so that people have to be able to have mobility. Before that, it's quite hard to thinking about how the change of international travel behavior change look like. But as Phil said already, so domestic travelers, so they have a high demand, same in Korea. So even though we have there are more confirmed cases due to Omicron, but based upon the critical level, it's much less than flu based upon our statistics. So as a result, so the demand of a domestic travel is increasing, which is a good sign for the tourism industry. And accordingly, a lot of industry level, they are making their strategy to respond to the high demand in the domestic travel. So in this sense, somehow in the research, I think it's more in the methodical wise. So I think this is a big question to me as well as to everyone in the world of researchers to make sure that how we integrate somehow the data of which we collected before COVID-19 and then after the COVID-19, how we understand it differently, and then how, like for example, forecasting level, 2020 totally dropped due to the older closed down lockdown. And then since then, how we're thinking about widely to look at differences or integrated over those findings. I think it's such a big question that we need to address.
Anyway, they like Sangwon Park and the Sangwon and Phil, he mentioned the domestic travel is going back to the normal, but still they remain the problem, international travel. Okay, Cassie, you are living in the Hong Kong. The Hong Kong is the well-known destination for travel city. So what do you think? Is it okay to the business?
It's a very good question. Earlier, the two speakers talk about actually we get a clue about variations among countries. So really, the impact of pandemic on the tourism industry actually to a large extent is at the mercy of the government policy. For Hong Kong, unfortunately, we're following the zero tolerance direction. So basically, at the current time, flights from 7 countries are actually banned. And the ban has been extended till pretty much the end of April. And that started right after Christmas. So basically the policy takes tourism industry out for close to half of the year going into 2022. And we already experienced 2 years of basically 99% down from the previous record. So government policy is really, really important. Moving forward in terms of the research, hopefully we can take a step back rather than looking at micro issues. Maybe somebody should look at the macro issue and look at the policy and look at the overall planning to take a big picture look of not only a specific issue, but the overall industry development phenomenon and how do we maintain the health and development of the industry. So sustainability is one thing, and then there are many other things that we need to put in place for the industry to develop sustainably. So again, because every country is different, every destination is different, obviously when we do research, we need to do research based on real questions happening in a particular context of local importance, but the readership really is global. So in addition to having local importance, we need to look at global relevance as well. So yeah, moving forward is going to be tough, not only for the industry, but also for researchers to come up with ideas that are meaningful for different stakeholders.
Okay. Anyway, you're the chief editor of the tourism management, and I think you receive tons of papers regarding these pandemic situation papers. Do you consider what point or what factors most important in this tourism context with a pandemic?
Well, I think a lot of the research or researchers got into, especially in 2020, the first half of 2020, a lot of the people just jump into the topic and think, oh, this is really timely. Therefore, they do a quick and short piece without realizing that now we're into the 3rd year and we're still in it. So a lot of the research ideas may be a bit too immature without knowing it. Of course, nobody has the hindsight. But now when we look back, really, a lot of the research probably could have been better if we waited for a while instead of going in. I understand it was a very hot topic and all the journals have special issues, including tourism management. But after 6 months, we realized that we probably don't need a special issue. It's been here for 2.5 years. So now we put all the COVID paper in a depository, if you call it that. So basically it's a web link so that if people are interested in COVID related papers, they can go to that link, but it's no longer a special issue.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, Dr. Dmitry Boris, you concerned this situation. What do you think about your editor-in-chief and the tourism review and especially speculation of this situation?
Well, we've never had anything like that in the past, so I think everybody was taken by surprise. And a lot of people did papers, as Kathy said, on COVID. I think my concern is that the industry was asking for expertise, and the industry was asking for editors and for authors to actually give some guidance in a very similar way that we were doing from the medical point of view. So I spent 1.5 years effectively doing all kinds of webinars and seminars about COVID, sharing the information we knew and also discussing the information we didn't know. And that was part of my contribution to humanity and solidarity globally. As far as, but I've never written a paper on COVID myself because I never had the time to do that. And everything was moving so fast that I never thought that we have enough sufficient information to do that. But I started publishing a lot of things on my blog very quickly, because on the blog, I didn't want to go through reviewers, I didn't want to go through the discussion with the scientific community. I just wanted to bring expertise out to the industry as soon as possible. As far as Tourism Review is concerned, we published a virtual special issue. We started publishing papers as soon as we had credible papers. We had a lot of papers admitted that they were not very good and they were either desk rejected or rejected very quickly. And now we've got, I think it's 76 issue 4, that it is the virtual special issue that brings all of these things. And in order to make a contribution, we made it open access, so everybody can actually see the content on 76 issue 4. And there is something about Tourism Review that's very special. It started in 1946, and it started after the Second World War, exactly for the purpose to rebuild the tourism industry globally. So I kind of felt very determined to actually take care of the heritage of the journal and bring a similar kind of situation and help the rebuilding of tourism globally.
Okay, thank you. Next, Patrick, can you say about your ideas and opinions about this pandemic situation?
Yeah, I think Kathy brought, I think Kathy brought up a really good point. It's a regional, the regional differences are making this difficult to study as researchers. You know, the global responses are similar. You know, all tourists are suffering from either more of a desire to travel because they haven't, or they're creating fears of travel that they may not ever lose. So every piece of research that we are generating right now, we have to consider the change in response. And it's difficult to capture what's going on, as Kathy said, due to those regional differences. And we get submissions, just like I'm sure all the other journals are, that seem to be more case studies of what's going on in one place. And even if they're trying to not have it be a case study, due to the change in travel restriction, the change in behaviors, the results are going to vary and really hard to generalize. The differences, Uli, are you in California today? The differences between thoughts and fears in California, extremely different than the thoughts and fears in Texas, where I am. And you know, we're in the same country. And so, you know, you can't even do international studies without differences being there. So I think all researchers need to be cognizant and write up their results and be honest about what they think the differences are in their findings compared to what they would have been pre-COVID. And if they collected data pre-COVID, what that means today to their research. And JTR is a little bit different. We require every submission to make a statement on COVID, and frankly, the statements aren't that strong. And you know, we thought when we came up with that idea that it would enlighten the results, and they certainly do. But it's such a complex situation because it affects everybody differently. People, next door neighbors, are one's desiring to travel, the other one's not, and it's confounding all that we're doing.
Okay, Patrick, he mentioned the importance of timing, and pre and COVID and during next. The Uli, can you say about this idea about? He mentioned the time difference between California and Texas. Anyway, what's your idea?
Well, I think it's more than a time difference. There's definitely differences in philosophy in terms of how our policy was implemented, but also how the whole pandemic was interpreted. And I have to add that I'm not just in California, I'm in Los Angeles, where, for example, the county decided not to go with the lifting the mask mandate that is now in fact happening in California. So not just regional differences, but really micro differences, even within states. But I think also in terms of travel, I think California, like Hong Kong, is a hub for travel and is just exposed to a different extent than maybe a destination like even Dallas, although you have a lot of flights coming in and out from Dallas as well. But most of the Asian flights, for example, come through either San Francisco or Los Angeles, right? So yes, differences are important, but I think there's also, I think from these differences, a need to think about the general trends and not get too lost, like Jim said, in those case study kinds of applications.
Okay. She mentioned the importance of a case study in a certain place at certain specific times. Anyway, next question to the Stan. As we well know, in the last day, we have a big occurrence again. Not only pandemic, but also the war. Those two factors severely affect the tourism business. And so the point of view about two aspects, can you say your opinion about?
Thank you. Really, I'm now located just about 500 kilometers south of Odessa. On Monday, I was thinking that we will have a decent summer because we are exiting the fifth wave of COVID. But now I think that probably there will be no summer tourism on the Balkans because we are just too close. And the lack of security, war and pandemics, they're the biggest enemy of tourism. So definitely the next few months do not look quite bright for the tourism industry in Bulgaria. The last 2 years were not good. We had more than 70% drop in revenues and overnights, all these performance metrics. Domestic tourism increased a lot. Previously, many Bulgarians were going to Greece, but now they understand. But now many of them remained in the country. Yes, and however, in Bulgaria, we have one big problem, and it is with the skepticism towards the vaccines, because we are 6.5 million people, which means 6.5 million specialists in vaccinations, in football coaches, etc. And because of this, with low levels of vaccination, something like less than 40% definitely, the future of the tourism industry in Bulgaria for the next few months does not seem quite so optimistic as I heard from the fellow editors.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, Stan, he lives in Bulgaria, very close to the Ukraine. Anyway, it's my concern as well. Anyway, okay, from the Jim Jensen, information processing and management. He is the real interdisciplinary professor. So can you say about your idea about pandemic and your research and your journal relatedness?
I really don't have much to add to what's already been said. The only special issue that we've ran about COVID is the COVID recovery period, which is a special issue we have going on right now, primarily led by communications professors. And So yeah, that's my only additional comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And another professor from Texas, Dr. Rao. Can you introduce yourself briefly and then tell your opinion about the pandemic situation with your journal?
Yeah, thank you, Chulmo. To introduce myself, I have to tell you a little bit of history. Chulmo is actually my grandchild academically. So he's the first PhD student of my first PhD student. And so I'm his academic grandfather. Yeah. So but I'm not old. So anyway, so Chulmo has done extraordinarily well, and I'm very proud of him. My interest, so I am the editor-in-chief of Information Systems Frontiers, which is a Springer journal, which is multidisciplinary. And Chulmo and Francesco and Sihan and Vevsi, they published a special issue. They guest edited a special issue in 2017, so quite a while ago, on smart connected hospitality and tourism. So that is the connection, and of course it was very well received. Are any of your co-editors here, Chulmo, from that time?
No, unfortunately, no.
Okay. So that was quite well received, and of course the articles talked about smart cities and about virtual reality and the IS success model and so on and so forth. So there was a very close connection to information systems, and of course that connection will increase as we go through the ages. So the question, your question was regarding COVID and tourism, and what I'm seeing with regard to the COVID aspects of tourism is that there is more of cybersecurity issues. As you remember, a few minutes ago we were Zoom bombed, so it fits perfectly in there. But we see cybersecurity issues coming up more and more. Maybe partly because, as James mentioned, people are raring to go out because they have been cooped up in the pandemic, and so they would be open to all kinds of scams, phishing scams, for example. We have seen in the past couple of years, we have seen a lot of hacking attempts. Air Canada, British Airways, Cathay Pacific, they have been hacked. Tour operators, travel websites like Expedia, Orbitz, third-party booking platforms like Sabre, holiday camps, and even cafes like Panera Cafe, Panera Bread Cafe have been hacked. And not just once, but several times. Along with the cybersecurity issues, you also have privacy issues. So so this is apparently a good time for people to get into systems for whatever reason it might be. Mm-hmm. And the other part of the coin is that customers think that the institutions are at fault for not having enough defenses in place. So that has opened up a new avenue or a new business of credit monitoring, compensation for data breaches, and so on and so forth. So from the dark side, yes, COVID has seen an uptake in some of these things. Mm-hmm. And going forward, will probably have to be addressed in a much stronger way.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. He's a grandfather of mine academically. It's my honor to work with him all the time. Okay, from now on, second question. I'm going to ask you about the genre of smart tourism. which we began last year as a new journal. Okay, technologies no longer belong to any single, discipline. Technology is for everybody, every industry, every people lives. So I want to ask you about your opinion about interdisciplinary research based on technology. Okay, it's an open question. You can say whatever you want to say. Okay. Phil, all the time, you're my first.
Don't start with me this time. We should go around and ask,
I can help if you like, Chulmo.
Okay.
Look, technology, we used to see technology as a separate kind of field somewhere in the corner. And quite often it was the end of every curriculum. So you were kind of teaching everything. And then at the end, you'll say, okay, and how is technology going to change the future? What we've seen in the last 10 years is that technology is not the future, but the present. And what we've seen through COVID is that this situation has made digitization go so much faster because people had to do all kinds of different things. They had to do e-learning, e-shopping, e-banking, e-relations, e-everything. And now where we were thinking that technology was something separate, now it's actually waved into the everyday life. Mm-hmm. And tourism is not an exception to that. So what we'll see is that tourism will be a function of technology rather than as a result of technology. Mm-hmm. So what when we talk about smart tourism is really about bringing a whole range of initiatives that they bring everything together, mm-hmm. from smart cities to smart villages to smart citizens to come together and co-create better value, mm-hmm. for everybody who's in the ecosystem. I think that is when I'm describing and I'm defining e-tourism is primarily how you can create e-tourism for everybody in the ecosystem, mm-hmm. and also how you can support people, mm-hmm. to work together in the co-creation of value across different things. Mm-hmm. And COVID is exactly the time that we've seen this, that smartness was so much important for the competitiveness of destinations, because everybody was looking to the up-to-date information, and everybody was looking to how we can take advantage of the knowledge that we had to make sure that tourism was opening and operating safely, but also profitably. And I think technology, therefore, becomes the absolute center of how tourism is being produced and how tourism is being consumed. This is not different. It has always been like that for the last 20, 30 years that I've been working in this area. But what is different is that now it's so critical that unless you are there, you don't exist. You kind of disappear on the background.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we're talking about the smart tourism and the technology tourism and whatever. Anyway, it is true the technology will be a tool for tourism, method. But however, tourism is still the nature of people and the life of people and the philosophy of people. So what do you think about with technology and the principle in tourism field?
Yes, Cassie, or you asking someone else?
Someone else.
Okay. You talk about smart tourism. Really, we're looking at two parts: consumer facing and also the operation management, the back of the house, so-called, mm-hmm. infrastructure. Actually, for both areas, we as a tourism researcher, scholar, or professionals cannot do it by ourselves. We need really a multidisciplinary based expert teams to do that. Even though I understand our younger researchers now, everybody's trying to learn some basic programming, learn the R, and they learn to do text analysis, machine learning and all that, which is fine, which is a good sign, because our researchers now, a lot of them analyze big data and all of that. So that's needed, but really we need an interdisciplinary team. Especially now, a hot topic is about sustainability. It's been there forever, but now people have realized, especially by the push of the COVID it seems that surface again, people are talking about sustainability. That today's sustainability takes a lot of support from technology. So really, when you build a smart tourism infrastructure, that piece needs to be there. Just by looking at tourism management, we get a lot of submissions from really very different disciplines. Of course, tourism focus is still the primary source of manuscript, but we get submission, someone can probably tell you better, we get submission from the traditional business school, but also urban study, land surveying, geo information systems, and School of Design, for example. They look at the design aspect of the incorporating technology. So yeah, I see interdisciplinary, even though that, for example, a paper submitted by a tourism scholar, really when you look at the authorship, multiple authors within the paper, very likely they have a interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary team. So moving forward, yes, technology is very important. A large part of the study will have to get the technology aspect in, because that's just the facts of life. So in addition to having us learning the different disciplinary knowledge, but also bringing somebody in can really help strengthen the expertise of the team from the research perspective and also from a tourism development perspective from the industry side.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Cassie Cho, it is very critical to researchers to perceive and to understand what she's thinking as a chief of the tourism management. So anyway, her direction and her vision is make an impact to the researcher. Anyway, thank you very much.
And can I add one more thing? You're following the Kathy's point. I totally agree with you. That what Kathy said. And then as a managing editor, when I look at all the submissions coming into tourism management, the number of submissions focusing on technology or machine learning or data oriented getting more and more. And then as Kathy pointed out, the authors, when I check their background or their major or department, they're quite various, not just tourism, but also information system or computer science even, and then with the geoinformatics, as Kathy said. But I really want to point out one more thing is that, as Dimitri said, we are looking at the tourism. Tourism should be the core. But when I look at the submissions, a lot of papers, they are only trying to apply the new method, new technology, but they're just looking at the tourism as just such a context. But when you talk about context, we have to discuss what's the core thing, what should we really come up with new insights, foundation from tourism, as opposed to focus on the technology, new method, machine learning data, such as one of the tools, help us to better understand tourism. So we have to touch upon what's the nature, what the new thing we have discussed before by applying new method, new data, just some sort of thing. So we have to, you should not misunderstand by applying new method, always making the originality or new contribution, but it's not. It's only a tool. So what you come up with new idea to better tourism, either in both travel behavior or management operation part, as Kathy said. I really want to add on this part as well.
Okay, principally, I agree with you about new tool, new method, but still we need a fancy and sexy methodological approach to make you understand, make you perceive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good always bring
whenever I see your papers,
but not necessarily always come up with a new idea as a result. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you.
Can I just say something, because I think someone raising a very good point. What we see is that a lot of the research is incremental. A lot of the research is saying, okay, this is how we are doing tourism. What about if I'm including this type of technology, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, whatever? what a lot of people are missing is the fact that we're going to a very new era of re-engineering and redeveloping tourism in a very different way. Because what's happening is that technology has moved us to a different kind of plateau and platform of operating. So a lot of the things, a lot of tourism practices that we did in the past will not be relevant in the future. And this is something I'm working a lot with industry to make them understand that what they were doing in 1980s, 1990s, even the pro-COVID era will be relevant in the future. Because when you talk to hotel groups, when you talk to airlines, everybody is fascinated about 2019. They would like to go back the time and start from where they started, from where they stopped. But I think it's absolutely critical to look forward in what's going to happen in 2023, 24, 25, and 2030. I'm fascinated about 2030 and Tourism Review, where we're doing a virtual special issue on 2030, because we are not going to go back. We're going to go forward, taking advantage of all the new technologies and all the capabilities that are coming forward to a new era of a new kind of smartness.
Okay, in terms of the new era, new technology, anyway, as Jim is the computer scientist. As a perspective of computer scientist, can you say as your idea about it?
Yes. Well, let me just speak directly to the journal you started. As I said, when you first started it, I think it addressed a very good niche in the tourism industry. Because as a person not in tourism, the perspective of what is tourism, from my view, versus what is the tourism of many of the tourism journals is totally different. So I think the journal you started really is addressed a area that was not being served by the existing tourism journals. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Actually, Jim Johnson, he gave me the opportunity to start off Journal of Smart Tourism. He gave the opportunity, the special issue in his journal, and it's kind of it's very, it's helpful for beginners. Actually, supporting by the established journal editors. It's true. Okay, and Phil.
Yeah, can I add a comment here? I think I agree with everyone, what everyone has just said, but a little bit historical perspective in terms of, impact of technology on tourism, right? When we talk about the so-called impact, we're really, trying to understand the intersection between technology, where technology is connected to tourism, right? Of course, there's many aspects that now technology actually interact with tourism. But originally, where we started was the focus on, say, the internet, right? 20 years ago, when we started, studying technologies, really, the primary focus was really the internet, right? What's the use of internet? Well, people use the internet for planning, for searching for information, for making decisions, that kind of stuff. So 20 years ago, our primary, say, research focus was really on, trying to understand the impact of technology, the use of technology on tourism marketing, right? How we can deliver, how we can come up with the best representation of the tourism product or the tourism experience, right? But now it has changed. We say that we're living in a so-called the smart tourism era. Well, what does it mean by smart tourism? Well, technology actually, if you want, permeates or penetrates many aspects of travel and tourism experience, from planning to on-site to en route to post, right? Travel, different stages of travel. So technology is everywhere, right? Like what Demetrius said earlier, technology may be at the center of the tourism experience. So I would argue that, when we talk about the impact, really we need to focus on those areas that technology or tourism experience actually interact or intersect with each other. Okay, so that's the my comment on this topic.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to ask you, James Patrick, you're the charge of Journal of Travel Research, which journal is very neck and neck to tourism management. So what is your position coping with the tourism management about technology?
Well, we're about producing good research. And what we're learning is that there's a lot of methodologies that are becoming capable because of the technologies that we have. So, you know, we're not far off from really good physiological measures using devices developed by industrial engineers. And you talk about the multidisciplinarity of what we do. We're going to rely on other fields for the development of the technology. But the travel field is so massive that we have so many applications for it that, you know, technology doesn't belong to any discipline. Each discipline will find a way to apply it. For us, you know, we're of the people, especially on this panel, you know, Annals and us are a little bit distant from the technology that's presented at tourism management and the other journals here. They're more of an applied basis. We're more theoretical, but there's so many theoretical applications. You know, if we can tap into the mind, imagine us getting rid of perceptual measures and actually looking at brain activity to see what happens. So technology will change our ability to understand the consumer and their responses. So for us, that's the sexy part of technology is going to be how we can gather information better. The other journals here are going to do a lot more really good applied research with it and show the utility of it on site. So we talk about having so many journals in our field, but this is a good example of why we need them. You know, every article's got a home, and you look what Demetrius has done with that journal, and it's phenomenal to see the articles that come out that wouldn't have had a necessarily home before. And Chelma, with your brand new journal, a brand new home for us to put things. So we're blessed to be at an age where journals are blossoming. We're all going to have jobs because, you know, publications are going to be needed. Research is evolving; it's not stagnant. So we don't have to rest on our laurels. So I think it's exciting for all of us, but depending on the journal, it's going to be very different.
Thank you. Thank you for your opinion about technology in tourism field. And the next question is very, very funny and skeptical question to you. Actually, I'm from Korea. I'm in Seoul now. My English is very local accent and not perfect, which means a second language speaker, second language writer. But my enthusiasm to research is very high, as much as high Demetrius, which means as Asian researchers and professors, they pursuing in publication in top tier journals. As far as I know, you have a lot of Asian colleagues, a lot of the Asian, you know, PhD students and master degree students under your supervision. But very, very, you know, surprisingly, Asian community, academic community, they don't have international decent journal, index journal so far, and very difficulty to launch or establish the journal in decent quality. In China, in Korea, in Japan, their brain and then their academic and then their education, you know, desire, and they are really look forward to do something for the academia or industry. So at this point, I want to ask you about journal in Asia perspective. Like what I asked you previously is there are a lot of barriers so far, and we are follower to the Western society. And we don't have global publishers in Korea, in China, but they want to catch up the Western standardizations. So I'm asking you, first of all, Stan, you're the managing your journal by yourself without publishers, right? So can you share your experience first and talking about this issue?
Yeah, thank you. We established the European Journal of Tourism Research 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. It is published by Varna University of Management. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have this. It is a completely independent journal. It is not affiliated to the big publishers, which we see here presented: Elsevier, Springer, Emerald, Sage, the challenges of this is that the marketing support that you get is much less than it would have been if the journal was affiliated to a big publisher. This means that attracting submissions becomes a little bit more difficult, because you don't have this the image of the publisher that stands behind the journal, and all the technical support that goes with it. But I think that being an independent journal also has extremely beneficial impact as well, and it is we have complete freedom. So this means that we don't need to consider any limitations that a publisher would put. And also because this is DJTR is a platinum open access journal, which means no fees for readers, no fees for authors. We don't have this this pressure to from the publisher that would be associated with the finances, whether to accept the paper in order to receive the article processing charge, or what happens with subscriptions. We don't have this pressure, so this is more or less why DJTR has is more open to different special issues, to different topics. We are more flexible in terms of in terms of the topics that are discussed, as long as it has a European perspective. So this is the difference of DJTR and the other journals that I see here presented. DJTR is a regional journal, and it doesn't have this global international scope, which 95% of the journals in tourism and hospitality have. We found our niche, regional focus, and we intend to stick to it.
However, you still have your own freedom for managing your journal, but it takes a long time to become index journal. So are you any concern about this?
Well, if you consider, first you need to define index, because the first issue of DJTR was published in 2008, and in 2011, just 3 years later, the journal was indexed in Scopus. It is also indexed in Web of Science. Okay. It does not have an impact factor. It's not part of journal citation reports, and it's just a matter of time that it goes there.
Okay.
But I'm personally, many people who are here know my opinion on the topic. I'm not a big fan of journal level metrics, because they are largely misused. So whether we get an impact factor or not, it's not a big concern for me personally.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other, okay, Uli.
So maybe bringing in the CHID perspective, having a publisher doesn't necessarily mean you have a lot of support, especially as far as language editing is concerned. And so I think the issue you raise in terms of being open to less polished papers is a challenge for everyone that does not have that editorial support where you can send off a paper to a language editor. But I think it's not so much, a regional focus that matters, or really the grammar or where someone is coming from. I think as editors and reviewers, we all appreciate good ideas and we're willing to work with people when they have them. Unfortunately, some people come from traditions where the way they express ideas is just so different from how Western and especially North American journals kind of go about presenting ideas. And there's not just an Asian problem, it's the same in Latin America and in Iran and Africa. It's just a different academic traditions where you just have you need to be used to how to express ideas. And I think as journals, and I hope that Smart Tourism will do that as well, we also have a responsibility to train our future authors in this way. And I'm also affiliated with service industries, and I know that STAN has been doing the dissertation papers. So there's journals that really cultivate junior research kind of streams, and I think that maybe is the way to go. I think Chulno, you're probably too old to train, but we can train the next generation. And kind of do workshops. Journals are not just about publishing, and I'm really hoping that this session here now shows that the Journal of Smart Tourism will be broadly engaged in the academic culture to maybe
Okay,
change.
Uli,
Yeah.
the following questions to you. You jump on Journal of Smart Tourism, the co-chief editor-in-chief. So what made you decision to jump into Journal of Smart Tourism?
Because I'm crazy. No, it's because I really believe in smart tourism as an area that brings together a lot of different streams of research. And as Jim has said, there's a niche for this. Smart tourism is an area where there's actually a lot happening in politics and in the industry, where academia is kind of lagging behind in some ways. So there's a real need to inform some of these efforts. There's big money behind smart tourism. Smart tourism is a global phenomenon, and I think there is hopefully there's a way to contribute to that academically, right? And so I'm hopeful that the Journal of Smart Tourism will do that.
Thank you very much. Your big decision and the involvement. And the next, we have the Phil. You are the chief editor of the JIT, and then the journal becoming now indexed. So what your opinion, and what you're coming from the China, and can you say something about the Asian perspective about journal and journal business?
Well, yeah, I was about actually to add a comment here. I agree with Wooly. I don't think it's Asia versus the rest of the world. I think it's more the status quo or the traditional English speaking dominated kind of the academic world, right, versus the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot related to, say, the historical context, the technological context. Now, the dominant, publishers, actually, they're affiliated with the major search engines, right? Indexing systems, databases, they're the dominant, forces in the publishing world. So it's really not about, it's not really between Asia and the rest of the world. It's really how you start up with something, right? It's the startup versus the so-called the legacy, the traditional kind of the way of publishing. So yeah, JIT, was fortunate enough to be indexed, right? Actually, JIT is the kind of the journal that has the longest history of publishing technology and travel and tourism. But used to be a niche journal, right? It remains to be a niche journal, which is fine. That's how it's being positioned as. But now technology, has become a sort of the mainstream topic. So there's some tension between, how you, develop your own identity versus how you own the topic, right? It's a struggle, and this is the reality we have to live with. So the question back to you, is not really, again, not Asia versus the rest of the world. It's really about how you start with the enterprise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, James.
Yeah, I'm going to add to what Phil said here and what Stan said, and there's a running theme here. We're worried about whether you got a publisher or not, whether or not you're indexed or not, what your impact factor is. That's a problem of the culture that academics has. And we should be worried about who gets access to the information that we're trying to create and generate. It's wonderful to have a high impact factor for your journal, but how many people truly read an article? As we move forward as academics, I hope that the culture evolves so that, if a journal can start anywhere, especially with translation technology advancing, a journal should be able to be offered in any language and translated immediately by the reader. And that's reality now, and it's only going to get better. So if deans and presidents of universities stop worrying about the impact factor of their faculty and worry more about the real impacts that the research is having, that's what needs to change. Everyone here wants research and science to advance. And that's why we became editors. Like Uli said, you're crazy to be an editor, take on these jobs. Yeah, we're all partially crazy. We take on this large extra workload because we believe in science and we believe in the research. And we're 24 days into this month, and I've desk reviewed 120 articles already. And that's insanity in most people's eyes. And to me, it's purely enjoyable. So we're partially crazy, but the game has to change for us to be more effective. So any journal should succeed. And you can push information out in so many ways. There's social mobile media. We're getting more creative. Popular news. Someone does a short article in USA Today in the United States, they have 10 times more readership than any article I'll ever do. And unfortunately, a university president says that whether I publish in a tier 1 or a tier 2 journal means more than that. And we're all as faculty playing a game that our deans and presidents tell us to play, but I don't think it's the best game for us to play.
The question I raised is a stupid question, but you guys very wise answer to my questions. Anyway, I still want to hear from the Cassie. You have experienced both sides, the Asian side and the Western side, and now you are chief of editors tourism management. So can you sharing your experience about the Asian perspective?
Well, it's really a very big question. You're talking about starting a new journal in an Asian context, or you're talking about the author's ability to publish in English journals. Taking the second half of the question, I don't think English writing skills or competencies really matters. And there is always that assumption that I'm not a native speaker, therefore I don't speak as well, or I don't articulate as well. Actually, that has a lot to do with confidence. I've seen so many papers written by native English speakers that are horrible. And I've seen so many papers that are written by second language, using English as a second language, but they write beautifully. So I think that's a perception or stereotype that we all have in our mind. Because it's not my primary language, therefore I'm not as good. I think that confidence needs to be built. Of course, it takes time. So the first part of the question, coming up with a new journal, obviously that's a lot of work. I was the editor for Journal of Teaching in Travel and Tourism for 16 years. That was a very small journal. We only got like 100 papers a year. So it is a struggle to get submission because it's not indexed. Unfortunately, we live in the world that, like Jim said, it's not the right game, but we're in it, right? So for smaller journals, it has its niche. It is important to have that journal, to have that outlet. But yeah, it is a challenge to get sufficient number of good papers so that you can gradually build up the reputation. But it serves the purpose. So I guess going by also Stan mentioned earlier, what do you mean by index, right? We don't all have to be in SSCI or a certain specific index. Each journal has its role. This is an IT journal. This is a smart tourism journal. That's a teaching journal. You know, it has target to a specific audience. So I guess each journal needs to have its aims and objectives. As long as the aims and objectives are reached, then it's a successful journal. So we should look at it that way. For example, in our school, when Professor Haiyan Song came to Hong Kong from the UK, he started a Journal of China Tourism Research. It's a very niche journal, which is difficult to get into the SSCI, but it has established itself as a China-focused journal, right? So I guess journal editors of especially new journals should feel good about what they do, rather than being really very bothered and stressed by the universal measurement.
Okay.
So I mean, we're not doing it for that measurement. We're here to serve a purpose.
I think you're saying is a very the beautiful answer. It is true answer, but still my university demand me to publish index journal and top rank journal for getting tenured, getting promoted, getting whatever. So the principally what you're saying is beautifully, is a principle to do research, but school doesn't think so. That's my concern. And the Korean universities, they are crazy about ranking, crazy about the index, crazy about things like that, and then they crazy about go global. Global means is advanced. Advanced means is culturally advanced, is smart, intelligence, whatever. And Asian parents, they are pushing their kids to go, good university. What's the meaning of the good university? It's a kind of a ranking index. That's why I'm asking a stupid question to you.
Well, I think we just have to work extra hard. I mean, a smart tourism is your passion. So you fulfill all the university requirement by publishing in ranked journal and get your citation high, but on the side, you do that's what really interests you, right? I think we all do that.
Okay, yeah.
Can I just say a few words? Number
Sure.
one, none of us here are native speakers. Probably James is, but none of us were born in
That's
an
right.
English-speaking country.
Jim and Patrick.
Yeah.
So that's number one observation. Number two observation is that Asia is the powerhouse of Having said that, because everybody is focused on quantitative numbers, impact factors, I've got 22 papers and you've got 16, therefore I'm better than you. Mm-hmm. We get a lot of really, the word crap is coming to mind, but I'm not supposed, I cannot say it publicly, but never mind, let me say it. We get a lot of crap papers from Asia, mm-hmm. which are desk rejected very quickly. Mm-hmm. We get a lot of quantitative papers of highly significant, statistically significant papers of totally insignificant issues that have no impact to society or whatsoever. And we find incredible practices, unethical practices that they're happening in many, many countries where all kinds of things are coming into play because people are under pressure from universities, from deans, from different people to perform to specific metrics. I think we really need to look around in what we're doing and why is ultimately the taxpayer paying us to do research, because they're ultimately, we are supposed to contribute to society. Mm-hmm. We are not, the public and the taxpayer does not care if you're publishing 12 articles or 25 articles. It may be 3 articles that they are super good, that they sort out COVID or they sort out a big problem, societal problem, rather than 12 really mediocre articles that they are measuring one thing or another. So I think it's our responsibility to educate our deans and our university presidents on what is really the role of science and what really journals are supposed to do, rather than counting beans and making sure that people saying, I've got, so many centimeters or so many articles and so many citations. So it's really the relevance and it's really the impact that we have got that should count.
Okay, thank you very much for your opinion and about the Asian perspective and the new journal and principle of journal purpose. And okay, anyway, you are the decision maker of the journal publications at different level. But anyway, I want to ask you, I want to offer the audience can get a chance to talk with the editors about publication and journal and papers or whatever. Okay, from now on, if you have any question to journal editors here, you can ask whatever you want. Anyway, turn on your video. Here is most of our student and junior faculties. They tons of energy and effort fighting for journal publication, I guess, because I've been through that process so far. But anyway, Simon, you first. What do you think of as a junior faculty?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Yeah, so I really appreciate, first of all, I would like to say really appreciate all the invaluable, the insightful answers for the question from all the speakers in here. So I just wonder, so because this is a really rare opportunity to talk with the many editors at the one place. So if it is possible, if it is fine, so can you share just in briefly, so in your journal, from your journal perspective as an editor and as an editorial board, what kinds of a trend is the major trend in maybe in terms of the submission in each of your journal, if you're fine, just briefly?
I can quickly answer that. We're seeing a lot of experimental design research coming out right now. I think in the last month, we've probably almost a fourth of our submissions have been experimental designs. We're moving to more theory-based, so I think that's part of the cause effect. We're seeing a lot of people throwing in a lot of variables to try to do economic studies that are just kitchen sink. They're really quick to desk reject. They're just finding as many variables as they can and throwing them. There's way too many of those. I think, Demetrius, when you were talking about a bunch of crap papers, that's probably the type of paper you're talking about. So scale development's coming back. Oh, Uli, your cat, yay. Haven't seen in a long time. We're seeing scale development come back as well. There's a lot of cutting edge stuff where people are scanning different forms of the internet to gather information in a quick manner from a lot of subjects. A lot of that research isn't really refined yet, but they're gathering a lot of data from a lot of people real quickly. So we've got good research and bad research, and a lot of it coming in.
And others?
Well, I agree with what Jim said, because we do see an increase in experimental design study and quite a few skill development, probably because people argue that now with the COVID, the concepts have changed, therefore we need to have a new measurement skill. A lot of big data studies. The social media content analysis seems to have passed, and now people do a lot of other kind of big data, geodata, image analysis, and so the methodology has getting more and more sophisticated. And we also see a trend of more author teams coming from cross-continent. So we have a lot of not only international, but really cross-continent authorship teams. So for tourism management, we're in the process of considering how to restructure our manuscript distribution, because historically we have the North American editor, the Greater China editor, and the European editor. That doesn't seem to work nowadays with lots of papers coming from intercontinental team and studying, again, an international global phenomenon. So that's a trend to supplement.
Then can I add a little bit briefly on what Kat said? And then as a managing editor, so I can see all submissions coming into tourism management. And then actually at the beginning, when Kat and myself took it over as a leadership, then we somehow got a lot of submission as a single survey based study. But now, as we took about more than 1 year, 1.5 years, then now so agreement or some understanding of the assumption requirement to tourism management has been changed into mixed method approach. Yeah, so that, as Jim said, is we have to make sure that the findings from research should be able to generalize, representative of the population as much as we can. So I think now submission, I can see the change of it, as opposed to looking at the one single survey based into more mixed. But even if they have one single survey, the authors try their best way to represent of the generalizability in their study. Yeah, this is what I can add on.
And
may I add something?
Sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with all what that was mentioned up to now. I just made a brief check of the last 2 years of the published papers in the EJTR, and I see that we have an increase in the number of review papers that was submitted.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some journals, they are not quite open to review papers, mm-hmm. but in the EJTR, with because of our policies, we are open to such papers, and we see that there was really an increase. The mm-hmm. other things regarding the methodology, this is also valid for us as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And from student.
Professor, yeah, I have a really small question. Actually, I'm just wondering what is a good study or a good paper? As a student, we understand that research published in a good journal is a good study or a good paper. So I want to listen to your opinions as editors of a top-tier journal in global. Yeah, thank you.
Dimitri?
It's a paper that does good to society globally. And also a paper that you personally are very passionate about. So Tsulmo is very passionate about smartness. Stan is very passionate about robotics. I'm very passionate about anything technology. For the last 30 years of my life, I've dedicated my life on this. So that's a good paper, a paper that you personally are passionate about and you do good to society. And the rest is going to sort out itself.
Okay. Very good answer, and very good. The philosophically is right. The problem from the student perspective, probably she wants to know something specific, something method. Anyway,
it is like describing a good husband or a good wife.
You're right.
So it's who is good for you, basically, and what does good to society. And I think you really need to get out of this opportunistic kind of thinking. I'll find a good topic and I'll publish quickly.
Okay, Dr.
This is really fundamental. Think about what can you do to society. What is that you can contribute to global society, global tourism? And how this will create a passion and a lifelong research project that you're going to be making this contribution. Go to Google Scholar and look what Stan is doing on robotics. He started, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. He's building. So most of his research is on robots and robotics. Very consistent. Look what Tsulmo is doing on smartness. But you really need to feel passionate about it, because otherwise it's not going to happen. Okay. Now, the technicalities of the research, the good methodology and all the rest of it is the easy part. This is coming later. But the direction and the commitment and the impact and the relevance are the ones that you really need to focus on. Okay. That's what I followed in my career.
Yeah, it is true. Anyway, Dimitri, he's a world-famous scholar, so he can say like a abstract level. The student they want the concrete level to get, into the publication. Anyway, good answer, good question. From other students or junior faculty, it is a really good chance, huge chance to prove your confidence in front of the world-famous researcher. And okay.
Excuse me, can I jump in here on that last question? Because I think it's really good for the certainly the passion thing is really important, but what is a good research is kind of outside your control. Once you do a paper, the marketplace kind of decides what's good research. My best research, if you ask me, has 4 citations. Okay, no one else seems to like it, but to me, I love that paper. I love that research. It just is what it is. In terms of like the mechanics, a good technique is in your area, find a really stellar paper that you really like, and really model your particular research or get to know that paper and see the methods and the approaches and the way they frame and present their implications. It's a really good way to start out if you don't really have a good idea, on how to structure a paper. Borrow the good ideas from some scholar or some paper that you admire it's a really good way to kind of jumpstart the structure of the paper itself.
Okay, very good tips for the students. Okay, the Hyun-gyu, it's your turn. Okay.
It's really honored to be in this seminar. Thanks for giving me this very good opportunity. And I think everyone think smart tourism is really popular, especially these days. But I carefully expect there's possibility the word smart tourism become less popular in the future, like less novel. So because this like buzzword have its lifespan, so if we assume this is era of smart tourism, then we look forward if there's next era of tourism that will maybe take over this position of smart tourism. So if the smart tourism become ordinary. So I'm not sure this is an appropriate question, but if there will be any next term that will take over smart tourism.
Wow, this is a wonderful questions. We just start and you say it's going.
Okay. I want to say something about this. Yeah, I think if someone had created a journal of Second Life studies, right, a few years ago, that by now people would say, well, you know, that has really gone away, or a journal of what was it, Friendster and all these kinds of applications, right? So I think in the technology area specifically, we are dealing with this progress, and that's why it's so important to publish papers that deal with fundamental issues. And yes, sometimes the concept might change a little bit, but I think the fundamentals, they're still important. And so sometimes journals do change their names because they add something to reflect that change. But I think there's something very specific about smart tourism that kind of addresses a particular use of technology and a particular approach towards development of tourism that is different. And so if we stick to the foundations of that, those will be relevant, even if maybe in 5-10 years, something else will come up. So I think this is also why we don't necessarily have a journal of Web 2.0, right? So I think in general, if you publish on technology, you should think about how that paper is going to age.
I think Yuli is absolutely right. And if you see the paper we did on ambient intelligence and tourism, it's exactly explaining that. Some of us that were very old, we start from telecommunications, which was fax. Then we went to computing. Then we went to information communication technology, ICT. Then went to e-tourism. Then we went to smart tourism. Now we're in ambient intelligence. The next one is metaverse and goes on. So it's the same line of different things that it's evolving, but it's actually really about how technology is supporting the ecosystem. And the name may change, but the area has been around, it will actually be driving in the future.
And other.
Can I add a little bit? Sorry.
Dr.
Rao, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Hyun-kyu's question is really, really important, because you will be the Journal of Smart Tourism for 10 years, then you'll be the Journal of Smarter Tourism, and then the Smartest Tourism.
You're my grandfather.
but the reason why this is a very interesting and important question, because we had this exact question when we were starting our journal, what to name our journal, Information Systems Frontiers. So at that time, e-commerce was coming in and we thought we would do E, but then someone like Hyun-Kyu brought this question up. And finally, we decided to go with frontiers because you will always be on the frontier. You can never be behind. So that's how we named our journal for Information Systems Frontiers. So yeah, good question, Hyun-Kyu.
Can I add a little bit here, Chomo? If it's okay. Also, I agree with everyone that Hyun-Kyu, this is a very good question. But also, I would like to circle back to what Yering asked a little bit. I think these two questions are actually connected, right? What is the good topic for a good research paper? And we can expand the idea to ask the question, what is the good journal, right? The scope of the journal. If you look at tourism management, well, JTR, right? It's everything that comes under so-called tourism management. If we ask how we define smart tourism, well, I would argue, I agree with Woolley. Smart tourism actually will keep evolving, right? We don't stop right here. I mean, we know kind of what smart tourism is. Well, it's technology-based, technology-enabled tourism, but technology is an evolving topic. So I would argue, I don't have any problem with having the journal called Smart Tourism. But back to Yeren's question, what is the good research paper, right? Well, a good research paper actually, it studies something which might be small, but it holds many things together, right? That's a good research paper. It's the same as, we're asking here, what is smart tourism? Well, what are the key variables under the notion of smart tourism? And we need to find ways to define them, right? To identify and define them. If we could do that, well, then the journal will, keep evolving and will keep getting better. Same with the research paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. James,
I'll jump on those last two questions. What makes good research is good science. It's theory-based or induces theory, and it has implications for theory and practice, and the methods are solid. And if you do that, and if smart tourism is your area of study, you will always have a place to publish. That journal may evolve. They may have to evolve the name. And I love going from smart to smarter to smartest. I think that's genius. But good research will always have a home. And if you're on the technology side, you're well ahead of most people. There's a lot of really good researchers out there that are struggling because research is evolving to involve more technology. And for those researchers that are losing contact and that aren't looking at studies that involve technology or using technology to gather data, they're going to fall behind. All of the major journals are seeing more publication involving technology, and that trend is not going to slow down. So if that's your area of study, stick with it. Just do good science and it'll always find a home. I think all of us here have written papers that, you send it to a journal that wasn't its right home. It found a home somewhere else down the road, and good research finds a home.
Actually, let me talk about this. Actually, Hyun-Kyu and Yeren, they are just start their research when they coming in the graduate school. But Patrick, James, and the Kathy, your long history you have, and your career path probably have been evolving every single step up to now. Is handling the technology is fantastically, but your early age probably is a lot of different from now, right? But you are sitting on the top of at some point at a certain specific area, and you're talking about with the junior faculty and students about the future. So what is your strengths of your career path development?
Go ahead, Kathy.
Well, yeah, it's really different. I don't know if I'm gonna make it if I'm competing with the current young generation of scholars. I mean, they're really, really good. They know a lot comparing to when I was at their age. So I think they have a good start. They just have to continue to pursue and be persistent, continue to learn. I'm still learning. Earlier, I think Jim mentioned about direct measurement, physiological measurement, eye movement and all that. I'm still learning. So my current research use some of the physiological measurement. So continued learning, lifelong learning. We've been talking about that to our undergraduate students and graduate students, but really it is important. And hopefully we can set as an example. Way back when I first started, very descriptive study. You only need to know the basics, bivariate, multivariate analysis, and that was it. But today, I mean, it's very different. We just all have to learn. So I guess hard work, persistence. I think the young generation now have a much higher starting point than what we had before. Now with the technology, information, accessibility and all that, but it doesn't make their job easier. They do have a lot more resources, but they just have to continue to work hard.
The learning capability is okay, James.
Yeah, I'm an old dog, Demetrius and I. Kathy, you're not old. You're still young as always. Demetrius and I, when we started doing research, Kathy was right. The statistics were pretty raw. I was real fortunate to learn structural equation modeling during my PhD, and it was cutting edge at the time. And now it's hard to publish SEM articles. They've got a really advanced theory to be worth a grain of salt now, where we used to be able to just throw a bunch of variables into a model and say, this is what's going on. So we're fortunate. I think most of the editors here I know really well. We've been surrounded by a lot of really good grad students, and our research evolves based on what you learn and what research problems you come up with. So we stay young with our research by keeping young people around us. So our research evolves based on, we're called the mentor, but too often we're the mentee. We're learning every day from other people, and it's forums like this. I can learn more in a day like this than I can sitting reading a journal. So just keep your eyes and ears open, keep learning, and your research will evolve, and it'll never take a straight road. Whatever you think you're going to study for a long time, it's going to zig and zag, and that's the joy of this job. It's not predictable.
Wow. Very yeah, Sim.
Yeah, well, just two quick things to add on the career thing. Don't underestimate the effect of luck. Just it does have an effect, and also just persistence. You can do everything right and still fail. You just got to keep trying, and so if that paper gets rejected or just rejected, learn what you can from it, and push it out again. If you really believe in it, you have to keep after.
Okay. And two students turn on her videos. There's something reason there. Okay, go ahead.
Can I ask a small question regarding writing? In my case, it is really difficult to think and write logically. So can you share tips or a training method for each professor to be a good storyteller?
Wow. Dimitri.
I think it's the thinking logically. The way I'm asking my students to start is to say a story to their grandmother. So if you say a story to your grandmother and your grandmother understands what you're talking about, not the technicalities, but the flow of it, that is the beginning of a good storytelling. Because every article needs to be a good story that says something that someone likes to read. And I think the most important thing for me is also to highlight what do we know, that's your literature review. And more critically is what is the benefit I'm going to have if I spend 1 hour to read your article? Because you are asking for a commitment of 1 hour minimum for someone to sit down and read your article, right? So if I'm spending 1 hour to read this article, what is the value I'm going to get out of it? So it needs to be very, very clear what is new and why is that important. So I think if you combine the two things, talk to your grandmother, hi grandmother, I've done this and it's important for this reason. And then you think of the reader and say, why would I invest 1 hour of my life? It's not only expensive in money, but it's also expensive in time. And what do I get out of this? These are the two ways that I think will help you.
There's another philosophical comment. Okay, James. You're mute now. Please turn on your.
Yeah, okay. Demetrius, you made a couple really good points in a row here. You know, you start reading an article, the front end is so important. You know, Sangwon, you know what it's like to desk review a bunch of papers, and title means so much more than we think. Title grasps people's attention. You scan a journal and you look through the titles and you decide which article to read. We don't pay nearly enough attention to our titles, and I think we are hideous at it. You know, Dimitri said the word crap, it's hideous. We write these long, boring titles that don't draw people's attention. We need to work on our titles, and Demetrius earlier said we need to do research that changes the world. Up front with your problem statement, tell us what you're going to change. What's the problem out there that you're going to solve? Don't jump right into your literature review till you've clearly stated that problem. And that should come out of that very first paragraph. We see your title, we see that initial paragraph, and we see the problem really well, and then we're willing to devote that hour to that article that Demetrius talked about.
From the first paragraph. Okay, Dr. Rao.
Yeah, so Demetrius was talking about grandmother. I will tell Cholmo to talk to his grandfather. But more importantly, I would like to quote Cholmo's great grandfather, Andrew Winston. So Andrew Winston is IS researcher. He has a amazing H index, probably 90 or maybe almost 100. He's still a very good researcher at the University of Texas at Austin. And
so old people.
Yes.
Over 90. Over 90.
No, the H index. I'm talking of the H index. So the
I know. Anyway,
yeah,
his actual age is over 90.
No, he's not yet over 90. He's younger than 90. So, but to quote him, he used to tell me, write, but don't worry if you are right. And I found that to be the best advice that he gave me, because you have to start, and you have to start writing, and later on other people can correct you.
Okay.
But unless you start writing, nothing will ever get done. Okay. And I think that was his best advice, and I still follow it. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Great. Phil.
Just a quick comment. I agree with everyone, you know, in terms of what has been said, but I think good writing really, the foundation of good writing is really understanding. if your writing reads kind of boring or, incoherent, illogical, it means you don't really have a good understanding of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, very good question from a student. And where is the turn? Okay, no student anymore about your questions to editors?
Hey, that one follow-on comment about that writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what defines good writing is sometimes defined by the journal. So make sure you target your writing for that particular journal. They have their own styles, their own way of presenting, their own structure. And so, many times there's not one good definition of what's good writing. It'll vary based on your outlet. So, adjust your writing style to where you want to publish.
Okay, adjust. Okay, Uli, I want to hear from you. You're writing very well. You're revising my manuscript totally. And when I receive your revision, wow. What's your strengths?
Yeah, I think it really follows from Phil. I actually write papers in my head first, and so I think you need to have a very good understanding of where you're going with that paper. And it's the same as Demetrius said, if you're clear about the message, right, then I think the other pieces fall in place. Now, I found that for my students, sometimes it helps to have an outline. And I always ask them for every paragraph, and especially nowadays with journals being so strict in terms of word limits, right? You have to, for every paragraph, you have to kind of decide what is the argument, what is the idea you're trying to communicate. And then for each of these ideas, how do they connect, right? So you can't just throw in a paragraph and not connect it to the one that was before and then the one that comes after. Mm-hmm. And every word needs to have meaning because of these word limits. Every word needs to be important. And so I'm very, very strict in terms of a reviewer as well as a co-author in terms of what words stay in papers, because they have meaning and they really either support or distract from that core message. And so I know that I've had many Korean students, and I know in Korean culture, the more often you say something, the more important it becomes. In the English language, unfortunately, it's very linear. So you should only say something once or express its importance in other ways. So I think those are some things to consider. And like other people have said, pick a good paper and try to kind of model what they did and what you like about the way they present an argument. I think that's been very helpful to me as a student as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are almost time is up, and it's one marketing, advertisement. The Dr. Jim Jensen, he mentioned that he will managing the conference. Sherman, I've never been there, but anyway, it's a good place to go, right? Yeah.
Beautiful city. Beautiful city.
Okay. I will submitting my paper to the conference.
Oh, please do.
Please accept my.
Yeah, we're trying to structure it where the conference and the journal are one seamless flow. So you actually present your paper, present at the conference, get feedback, and then it's published in the journal about a month later.
Okay. Okay, I'm very. It is my real honor to invite a world famous professor as well as world renowned, journal editors for my students, especially in Korea. We actually is Korean culture, Asian culture, Chinese culture is a bit different from Western culture and American culture and the European culture. I'm talking about the hierarchy of professor and teacher and students. So actually, we are a young generation is look for the Western style discussion and free style, discussion and conversation. But it's old generation still stick to the old-fashioned way. So it's hard to communication each other and dialogue each other. But anyway, this kind of chance, we are very sharing ideas and talking freely and give and take the question and answers. Anyway, one last ask you question about if here is a young junior faculty and the students and then new journal editors. Please give your tip of advice to them, student, new faculty, and new journal. Okay.
Fill your heart and that creates your mission.
I want to ask you first, Dimitri.
Fill your heart and that creates your life mission.
Thank you. And Phil?
Well, love what you do.
Yeah.
Do what you love.
Love. Wow. Love. Love. Okay. Phil, you still love your wife?
Well, that's another topic.
Okay. Okay. And Jim?
Yeah, well, just yeah, you certainly have to have a passion about it, and also you feel have the talents and make sure it fits with your particular skill sets. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you. And James?
I'll go against the grain a little bit. A lot of people have said, look at other articles and copy them and try to use them to guide you. Think innovatively. There's so much great research to be done. Find a good theory. Seek out really good theories and find ways to apply them in a new way. So many theories have been developed and studied in other disciplines, and bring them over to our field, but study them from a different eye and a different angle. Don't replication is important, but it's exciting when you see an innovative study, something that you haven't seen before, and it doesn't happen nearly often enough. So be innovative.
Be innovative, right? Thank you very much. Like Daniel Kahneman, he is a behavioral economics. Actually, that theory is affect every single field these days. Okay. Uli?
Well, I would say don't stop asking tough questions. Asking yourself as well as asking those you write with, and also asking these questions at conferences or in sessions like this one. So I think that's what academia is all about and what makes it so so great. But I think it's also a challenge, right? We have to be prepared to then also answer these tough questions. So.
Yeah. And the someone you looks a junior faculty, but actually your official rank is a full professor. So tell your idea and sort.
Oh, well, yeah. Actually, I want to suggest that to keep working until you are confident, which means that when students write a paper, I'm asking a question, can you bring the findings you found from the study going into government? They're asking them change their policy based upon your findings. Or can you go to a company to change your marketing strategy based on the findings from your research? They may say that no. Then I'm asking back, how can you submit the paper with the finding you are not confident? So this is such a violent and then distort all the research foundations or contributions. So not only methodology, but also bring the theory, everything, all the aspects of research If you're not confident, then you are not ready to submit your paper into the journal. So what I want to say that keep working on until you're confident with your findings. Yeah.
Actually, the most scary colleague in these days is someone to me. How can I write a paper affecting industry and the government? Okay, Cassie.
I would say take feedback to the heart, but don't take it personally.
Okay. Wow. It's an honorable professor's comment. Don't take personal.
Yeah, but you need to take it to the heart. Every comment serves a purpose. So make sure you think about the comment, reflect on it, but don't take it personally.
Yes. Wow. And then Dr. Stan?
Many things were already said that are extremely relevant. I would just add that students need to be persistent and not to be disappointed when they receive rejections. Rejections are inevitable, but they help us improve.
That's right. Okay, one last person I want to ask my grandfather of academy as Dr. Rao, and please wrapping up the comment for our audience and colleagues and then the editors together.
So let me answer the previous question first. What advice? And the advice will be always respect your elders. So,
that's right.
There's value to that because you essentially have to stand on the shoulders of those who have come before you. So that's a valuable piece of advice.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I have to give the last word, I would say all the best to you and to all your colleagues, and hope the journal does fantastic and becomes a pinnacle of success. And I'm glad you have this conference workshop, and hopefully many more in the future.
Okay, future is already comes to you and me and us. So anyway, we keep working on for the future fighting. And I'm very honorable to me inviting the professors and the honorable professors and editors. And it's a kind of a new era to invite through the Zoom or YouTube link, sharing your idea, thinking, philosophy to everybody in a one shot. So I'm going to share this the meeting with YouTube, and I want to show this Korean Academy and the other the academy as well. So anyway, thank you very much once again. I very highly appreciate your commitment and involvement and the participation. And I'm looking forward to you, not virtually anymore, to the physically in a conference. It's really, I wish.
Thank you,
sooner or
everyone.
later. Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Good evening.
Bye.
Good morning.
And good morning. Bye.
Dimitri, thank you. 오재인 교수님 오셨습니까?